Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to AKS. Myself, Rachna. In this session, we're going to talk about the important bills and acts that were taken up in the Parliament for the year 2019. By analyzing the previous year questions, we can know that definitely there will be at least the one question coming up from the bills or acts in the mains of Group 1 or even UPSC. As well, the topics on which this present bills or acts were introduced, on that topic we get to see so many questions in the prelims perspective. For that reason, we are not just going to talk about the provisions of the bill or an act, but also we can talk about few factual information that is needed for the prelims. As well, you can find our PDF in the below content section. The first bill taken up for discussion is the Personal Laws Amendment Bill of 2018. This bill was passed by the Lok Sabha. The main aim of this bill is to remove the leprosy as a ground for divorce, right? So this current bill, we are still calling it as a bill because it is only passed by the Lok Sabha. It is not yet passed by the Raj Sabha. Neither it got an assent from the president in order to become an act, right? And we are calling it as an amendment bill because this particular bill is going to amend following 5 acts. Before we see this following acts, first let us answer why did they exactly feel the need in order to bring such amendment to the following 5 acts. If we see, the basic aim of this bill was introduced because of the various recommendations that were made in order to remove the leprosy as a ground for divorce. Such type of various recommendations were made by even the Law Commission in its 256th report has recommended repeal of laws and provisions which were discriminatory against the leprosy affected people. And as well, India is a signatory to the UN resolution which calls for the elimination of discrimination against persons suffering from leprosy, right? And in 2014, the Supreme Court had asked the center and the state governments to take steps for rehabilitation and integration of leprosy affected people into the mainstream. Not only Law Commission and Supreme Court, but also such recommendations were made by the National Human Rights Commission long ago. So this bill is going to eliminate leprosy as a ground for dissolution of marriage or for divorce. The amendments omit the provisions which earlier was stigmatized, and it was kind of discrimination that was against the people who were affected with the leprosy. Now this bill is meant to provide for the integration of leprosy patients into the mainstream so as to keep in view about the India's signatory to the UN General Assembly resolution which was passed in 2010 in order to bring the leprosy people into the mainstream. As well, this bill talks on the elimination of discrimination against leprosy affected people and their family members. As told, this amendment act is going to amend 5 acts, namely the Divorce Act of 1869, the Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act of 1939, the Special Marriage Act of 1954, the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, and the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act of 1956. In all these acts, there were a provision related to marriage, divorce, and separation of Hindu and Muslim couples. Each of these acts prescribe leprosy as a ground for seeking divorce or separation from the spouse. So this was the how and what about this bill. Now let us see what do you mean by this leprosy. Leprosy is one of the oldest disease in the recorded history. We see even our ancient Indian in the Rig Veda, we have seen the mention of the disease called as leprosy. This is also called as Hansen's disease. It is very chronic and it is a progressive bacterial infection which is caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium leprae. It primarily affects the nerves of the extremities, the skin, the lining of the nose, the upper respiratory tract as well as eyes, right? So this disease usually produces skin ulcers, nerve damage and muscle weakness if it isn't treated. It can cause severe disfigurement and significant disability. It is known to occur at all ages ranging from early infancy to very old. It is common in many countries, especially those with a tropical and subtropical climate. India is considered as a point of origin of leprosy with skeletal evidence dating as back as 2000 BC. That's why I told this leprosy was also mentioned in the Vedas, where we see that people were segregated. We get to see in so many movies also. The one person who comes to our mind when we think about leprosy is the Mother Teresa, right? So this is thought to have spread from the trade and war to other parts of Asia, Middle East, North Africa, and later to Europe as well as America. The origin, that's why they are saying that it was found in the Indian region alone. Leprosy currently affects approximately million people throughout the world, and the majority of cases are being reported from India alone. And India, because it is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, now they are running the largest program in the world called as National Leprosy Eradication Program. Earlier, whosoever would have contacted such type of leprosy, they used to be actually attached to some kind of sin, and they would be just thrown out of the town or a city very segregatively. They have to live until they die, right? But yet now the leprosy is curable. We have gotten medicine. That's why the Indian government has brought about such type of amendment to the acts of marriage, where you cannot dissolve or divorce a person just because he is having leprosy. Coming to second bill, the Protection of Human Rights Amendment Bill of 2019. Although here it is mentioned as bill, but yet I must say it has become an act now. On July 22nd, it was passed by the Rajya Sabha and it has even got the president assent. So now it has become an act. So this present act is going to amend the Human Rights Act of 1993. So we all know, hope you all also would have read in our Lakshmikant about the NHRC and HSRC, which are provided under this Act of Human Rights of Act of 1993. That's why these are called as statutory bodies, right? This NHRC and HSRC act as a watchdog of human rights. Now, before we see what are the amendments this present act has brought, first let us analyze or appreciate the current composition of the NHRC. If we can see the current composition of NHRC, it is a multi-member body. It has got one chairman and four other members, right? This chairman should be definitely a retired Chief Justice of India, whereas in these four members, one member should be the serving or the retired judge of Supreme Court. The second member should be the serving or the retired Chief Justice of High Court, and the other two persons should have the knowledge or practical experience with respect to human rights, right? So these are the five members who became the members of the NHRC earlier, but this present composition also has four other non-official members, right? This non-official ex-officio member, belongs to the National Commission of Minorities, National Commission of SCs, the National Commission of STs, as well as the National Commission of Women, were all the ex officio chairmen. Now, the bill has been amended so as to bring the fifth person among the full time members. Now, as told here, that the two persons here should belong or should have an experience or practical knowledge in the with respect to human rights. So the bill is going to increase it as not just two persons but also the third person, and this third person should be definitely a woman. That's why I've shown it in a different color here. Not only that, it has also brought changes in the ex officio members. Here, if we can see, there are four ex officio members, and the chairmen of minorities, SC, ST, and women are its members, right? So now this present amendment is going to add another three persons to the members of ex officio members. Namely, here it will also include the National Commission for BCs, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, as well as Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities. So this present act is going to bring the changes in the composition, first in the full-time members, by adding another woman into the category of persons having knowledge or practical experience with respect to human rights, and other three persons will be added in the ex officio members, which will include the National Commission for BCs, National Protection Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and National Commission for the Chief Commission for the provision for the persons with disabilities. So these are the changes it has brought in the current composition of NHRC. Now coming to the HSRC, that is State Human Rights Commission, right? This commission also was formed under the Human Rights Protection Act of 1993, right? So now this HSRC, if you can see, the main function of HSRC is to inquire into the violation of human rights only with respect to the subjects which are mentioned in the state list as well as the concurrent list, right? So here in the HSRC also there will be one chairman. It is also a multi-member body and it will have two other members. In these other members, one will be the serving or the retired judge of High Court, or he can be a district judge in the state for at least 7 years. The second person must be a person who is having knowledge or the practical experience with respect to human rights. So kindly see here, the chairman of HSRC should be definitely a retired chief justice of High Court, but now they have amended to say that it need not only the chairperson need not belong to the retired judge of High Court, Chief Justice of High Court, but also Judge of High Court can become the chairperson of the HSRC. Right, this is about the composition. Just now we have seen about the changes in the composition of NHRC. Now coming to the terms of office of this present NHRC and HSRC chairmen, we say that they can serve for 5 years or 70 years, whichever is earlier, right? But now they have reduced the term of 5 years to 3 years or 70 years, whichever is earlier, right? Now they have also come about saying there can be reappointment of members of NHRC and HSRC for a period of 5 years. As of today, there is no such composition called as reappointment, but they are saying the members of NHRC as well as the HSRC, that is members, can be reappointed for a period of 5 years. So this current bill removes the 5-year limit for reappointment. Now coming to the powers of Secretary General, this act provides for Secretary General of NHRC as well as Secretary of the HSRC, now whose exercise powers may be delegated to them, right? So earlier it was in this way, but now the bill amends and this is going to allow the Secretary General and Secretary of HSRC to exercise all administrative as well as the financial powers exercise except the judicial functions subject to the respective chairperson's control, right? Now not only that, we have seen the HSRCs were actually established in 25 states, right? But there is no HSRC in the union territories, right? So now this bill provides that the central government may confer on the HSRC human rights functions which are being discharged by the union territories. So the functions relating to human rights in case of Delhi will be dealt with the NHRC itself. So just like today we get to see the bench of Andaman and Nicobar is with the West Bengal, in the same way this bill is saying that HSRC should be one of the HSRC should be given a right in order to confer or in order to discharge the duties of any of the union territories. So on the whole, hope you will remember the pictures I have shown. First of all, it brought the changes into the persons of NHRC. Then its ex officio members also it has tried to add 3 more people, and HSRC it has removed the obligation of definitely a CJ of High Court should be the member of the chairperson, but yet now any retired judge of High Court can become the chairperson of HSRC. As well, it has brought about the term, it has decreased to 3 years or 70 years, whichever is earlier. Now they have increased the powers of Secretary General, that they can administer all the administrative as well as financial powers, right? And it has bill has provided that central government needs to assign one of the HSRC of the duties of the union territories, right? But the Delhi alone will be taken care by the NHRC. These are the following amendments this present bill has brought, and remember it has already become an act now. Coming to the third bill, National Medical Commission Bill of 2019. This present bill is going to replace the Indian Medical Council that we have been hearing for so long, right? It was established in some 1933. Now they are going to replace this Indian Medical Council with National Medical Commission in order to regulate the medical education and practices in India. The main reason why they wanted to replace the such a old body called as Indian Medical Council is the reason because this regulating body, which was also regulating the medical education and practice since several years, various issues have come up which were related to the functioning of MCI, like their regulatory role, composition, and there were a lot of allegations of corruption, and also there was lack of accountability. If you can see, the Indian Medical Council was again a elected body where the members were elected by the medical practitioner themselves. So this is something like regulated body itself was regulating themselves, but because of lot of discrepancies in their composition as well as their corruption kind of allegations, now they want to bring more accountability into the medical education and practice. That's why they had an intention to bring it the National Medical Commission. The main aim in order to bring this bill is to address several concerns as told, including the medical education, as well as it is going to provide the strategies in order to address the shortage of trained doctors. We know that although India is producing good number of doctors, but yet they are moving away from India, they're going abroad because of the better opportunities. So as of now, there is lot of shortage of the trained doctors and medical caregivers, and they're also going to restructure the medical regulatory authority of the country so that there will be clear definition of the jurisdiction as well as the responsibility. That is all is going to be addressed by the National Medical Commission. As told, four things you should remember it is going to address: one, about the medical education; the second is about the shortage of trained doctors as well as the medical caregivers, and it is also going to restructure the medical regulatory authority. Right now, first coming to the authority, how they are going to restructure the commission. This medical commission bill proposes to have a four autonomous boards in order to take care of different functions. First, we all know medical education starts with the MBBS, right? So for this purpose, that undergraduate medical education board will be set up so as to set standards and also to regulate the medical education at the undergraduate level. The second board they're going to establish is the postgraduate medical education board. We know that after MBBS it is again the MD and the specialization that the people move to. So this post graduation medical education board will be set up in order to see the standards as well as to regulate the medical education at the post graduation level. Now, the third thing they're going to address is by establishing the medical assessment and rating board. Right, this particular board will do the inspections as well as it will give the ratings on the medical institutions so that people can decide depending on the ratings on which medical education center they have to join. The fourth and the most important thing for any doctors is to have very ethical standards, right? So because they are the life givers of the country, these people have to maintain a good form of ethical code of conduct. That is the reason they are going to bring the ethics and medical registration board so as to regulate as well as promote professional conduct and medical ethics, and also to maintain the national register of licensed medical practitioners and community health providers. Remember, as I told, there is always a dearth of the medical practitioners in India, so they are also going to maintain a register of not only the medical practitioners but also community health providers who play a very important role in giving the medical or the health education to the people. Now we know about the medical practitioners that they do their MBBS, then their MD, and how they get their license and all. But who will be these community health providers? They are nothing but they are a new class of medical practitioners. They will be given a license to practice the modern medicines at the mid level, to those who are connected with the modern scientific medical professionals, right? So the criteria for this, who can actually become this kind of community health providers, what should be the degree for them, and how many years should they practice, and all these things will be mentioned later. As of today they are just mentioning about the community health providers, but if they should be, they will designate the asha workers as a community health providers or not, all this specification they are going to mention it lately after the full commissioning of the national health commission, right? So their number would be one third of the total number of licensed and registered medical practitioners. That means if in a year 100 medical practitioners are getting the license, in that they will also make sure that the other 33, that is one third of them, will be the community health providers, because they also play an important role in the education of the masses, and they are the one who will keep in the regular check if whatever the medication is advised. Example, if you take the tuberculosis, we have to see the after effects if the patients needs to continuously visit the hospital and all. So such type of community health providers are important, and for this what will be the specification, it will be specified in the later stages. So we have seen about the four medical boards that they are going to establish under the National Medical Commission. But what is this composition of the medical of the commission? If we see, this commission will be having 25 members, right? Among this 25, the 60%, if we see, that is around 15 members, will be the medical practitioners themselves, right? So in order to the members of this medical commission will be appointed by the central government, right? This central government, in order to appoint this 25 members, it will establish a search committee. This committee, which will consist of 7 members, including cabinet secretary, and 5 experts. Among these 5 experts, the 3 will be the medical fields. 3 persons from the medical fields will be again nominated by the central government. So this 7 members committee, called as search committee, will recommend the names to the central government, and this central government will appoint these 25 members. Okay, don't get confused, have a clarity again. First, the central government is going to establish 7 members committee called as search committee, right? This, in among the 7 members, it will be the cabinet secretary also, along with 5 experts. These 5 experts will be nominated by the central government. Now this search committee, after examining everybody, it will recommend the names to the central government, and the central government will appoint this 25 members. Now let us see who will be the members of NMC, right? Just now we have seen how the medical council's 25 members will be appointed, who will be appointed by the central government depending on the search committee report. Now, whom they can suggest, this medical council members, whom they can suggest. First, talking about the chairperson, right? This chairperson must be a medical practitioner, however, right? Then again, a president of UG, that is undergraduate, and a postgraduate medical education boards. The 2 persons will be again made the members of the NMC, right? And the 4th person will be the director general of health services, and also the 5th one will be the director general of Indian Council of Medical Research. This will be the 4 persons who will be the members of NMC, and the other 5 will be elected by the registered medical states or UTs for 2 years, right? So altogether you can see 4 plus 5, 9. The rest will be, as I told, that among the 25, the 60%, that will be around 15%, will be definitely medical practitioners. The other 10 will be coming from the other experts group, like health economics, as well as the experts who work in the community field work, like that and all. Some other the other 10 members will be the experts in other field. So it will guarantee a kind of dynamism, it would not be like earlier Medical Council of India, where most of the people, this present regulator was itself acting as a regulator. Such things will be done away. If we can take the example of UK and all, it also has something commission like National Medical Commission, but in that also they have various fields, I mean diversified people, so that they can bring about holistic composition into the National Medical Council. The same thing will be replaced in India also. Now coming to the functions of NMC, this you can actually calculate because it is just replacing the Indian Medical Council. So here the functions of NMC will include framing policies and regulating medical institutions as well as medical professional. Right. The second important function of NMC is assessing the requirements of healthcare related human resources as well as the infrastructure, ensuring compliance by state medical councils of regulators, which will be made under the bill. So here within the coming of this bill within 3 years, every state also must establish a state medical council. So once the state medical councils are established, the NMC will ensure the compliance of this state medical councils of regulations which will be made under this act. Fourth one, it will frame the guidelines for determination of fees up to 50% of the seats in private medical institutions, because that was another allegation which was made on MCI, that it was not regulating the private seats and they are charging huge amount of money. So now, although the 50% of the money will be decided by the private medical institutions, but it will determine the fees up to 50% of the seats, as in not only in the private medical institutions but also in the doomed universities which will be regulated under the bill. So we have seen about the composition of 25 members and what will be the function and how these 25 members will be elected. Not only that, the bill also will provide for a medical advisory council. This council, the central government will constitute this council. The council will be primary platform through which states and unitary territories can put forth their views. Earlier, contrary to this, MCI was only regulated, something kind of regulator or the apex body, where the states things were never heard or never given a platform. In order to hear and listen to the allegations or the suggestions by the states and union territories, now they have put up a platform called as Medical Advisory Council, right? And it will put forth the views and concerns before the NMC. Now the council will advise the NMC on measures to determine and maintain the minimum standards of medical education. Not only that, another important I told you, that is related to the medical practitioners. Coming to the community health providers, the NMC may grant a limited license to certain mid-level practitioners. Maybe now we also call it as RMP doctors, like that, right? So such type of people, it will even give the license, limited license. Remember, they cannot perform operations and all in that way, right? Limited license to the mid-level practitioners who will be connected with the modern medical profession. Do not think if somebody is practicing kind of Ayush or the Unani in a very traditional and a very old way, such people cannot become the community health providers, but only who are practicing the modern medical profession can practice such type of medicines. So this mid-level practitioners may prescribe specified medicines in primary as well as preventive health care. In other cases, these practitioners may only prescribe medicines under the supervision of the registered medical practitioners. Remember, they can give the prescribe the medicines and all, but it should be again prescribed, or it will be only under the supervision of the registered medical practitioners. So because we cannot play with the people just by giving such type of license to the community health providers, if they are not well educated, if they are not well regulated by the medical professionals, then it can lead to a lot of discrepancies, right? Now next, coming to the most controversial thing, we know that before NEET was introduced, lot of people have shown their resentment, but yet now NEET has come into place, right? So there will be this bill has actually, as I told, it has already become an act. So now coming to NEET, it is also entrance. Now everybody is taking only this NEET entrance. for admission into UG as well as PG super specialty medical education in all medical educations which will be regulated by this act. Now the NMC will specify the manner of conducting common counseling for admission in all such medical institutions. As of now, the counseling is going on in an online method only, which will be common to whole of India, not just any specific states and all. Right now, the bill proposes to have a common 5-year undergraduation examination called as National Exit Test for the students graduating from the medical institutions in order to obtain the license for practice. Remember, earlier there was no such provisions for a people, so whosoever would have completed MBBS, they could have applied for the license. But yet now they're asking that not only need through need they come and enter into the MBBS, but after finishing MBBS, now they will have to write the national exit test so as to obtain the license, right? So that this will act as a proper channel in order to test what the students has learned in his undergraduation. Right now, this test will also serve as a basis for admission into postgraduate courses at the medical institutions. So not only it will give the license, but it will be a key to the PG also. So these were the three important bills that we have discussed in this session, but yet we are coming up with the part 2 as well as part 3. So stay tuned to our channel, and also check our playlist if you're unable to find these videos. And as described, the PDF will be available in the last part in the description itself, so from where you can download.